I would say that 9% in this room out of 10 asked me the question, how can I do more business with Canada? And this is one of the main, this is the subject of this session. People who want the know-how and how to export to Canada. We can talk about the way we have a system in place. TFO will talk to you about that. The Canadian Society of Custom Broker will also help you to find the real approach to make sure that it works for you. And if you want to take away from this conference, you should have a lot of good advice here. And somebody asked me, what's the next step? Well, the next step is to make sure we understand how it works, keep in touch with these people, and see what we can do together over the next few months. So without any further delay, I'd like to present to you a very good friend of mine, Brian Mitchell. We've been working together for a number of years. Brian is with TFO Canada. TFO Canada, as he will explain to you in a minute, is definitely the organization in Canada that helps exporters from all over the world to come to Canada, but especially developing countries. And he has been with as an executive director of TFO, Trade Facilitation Office, since August 2007. So he's the person. We haven't had many men giving advice to women here because it's not easy to give you the right advice. You may think that we don't have the right one, but definitely a champion for export from Africa to Canada is Brian Mitchell.
Thank you very much, Lucien. And thank you, all of you, for the opportunity for myself to be here and many Canadians to learn and hear about the inspiring stories that we've been hearing all day of your businesses and just their growth curves, their activities in country and also abroad. And I'm very pleased to be here to share with you some practical advice, together with two colleagues here, on how to do business in Canada, and specifically how to export, and some advice on building an export-oriented business as well that Diane will share. But first, let me introduce our organization. So the TFO Canada is a non-government, non-profit organization which has the mandate of trying to contribute in a small way to growing your companies so that you can grow your business, hire more, create sustainable job growth, economic development, and ultimately tackle poverty in your countries. And we do that through three means. We do that through providing information services, through advisory services, and through contact services. I'll share a little bit about that today and then let you know where you can get more information today and also after you leave through the internet. We were created in 1980, so we have a long history of working in Africa and many other parts of the world. Our primary client are businesses like the ones that you lead or own, mostly small and medium-sized exporters from literally across the globe. But we also work very closely with trade support organizations, and I know that many in the room and at the conference represent organizations, government, non-government, that support local exporters and entrepreneurs and businesswomen, and we very much see you as a key client as well. And we also work with Canadian importers, and I may be speaking to some in the room as well. There'll be a few coming by tomorrow for the B2B meetings that we've arranged, because trade doesn't happen if there isn't two parties for the dance. And so we work closely with Canadian importers so we can put them in contact with businesses like yours. We are able to do the work we do with funding we receive from the Canadian government, from CETA, the International Development Agency. But we also work with a variety of governments directly on trade missions and other activities. South Africa, Tunisia is a couple of recent examples. So I mentioned we have three types of services. Information services is certainly the most visible, the most widely used service that we offer. Over 6,000 exporters have registered onto our online trade information service. Again, companies like yourselves, this is a free service offered by the Canadian government to provide you trade information on how to export to Canada. As you could guess, most of the information is best accessed using the internet, but we do occasionally print publications, and we have actually here one of our print publications, the Handbook for Exporting to Canada, and that's available to those of you that are interested in the B2B room next door, and I'll speak more about that at the end. Another part of the service that we offer are advisory services, and these can range from market entry studies that we've done for a number of countries, recently from Burkina Faso, on how to enter the market. These are studies put together by MBA students from different universities across Canada. But then we get involved in more intensive activities, and Diane actually will speak to some of that work that we've done globally. But several years ago, we were involved in a program called Access for African Businesswomen in International Trade, an export entrepreneurship and training program that we implemented with partners in over 10 countries across Africa. But the number one question that an exporter always asks is, where are the buyers? Put me in touch with buyers. And we certainly try to do that. The advisory, the information services are to prepare you as an exporter before that meeting, but ultimately, when you're ready, we try as best we can to put you in touch with Canadian buyers. We maintain contact with over 1,400 Canadian buyers, mostly in consumer goods sectors. That includes food products, clothing, home furnishing, fashion accessories, cosmetics, quite a wide variety of consumer goods. And we are regularly involved in trade missions and trade fairs, and a few of them I've just named there below. We also do a number of solo trade missions, and one that we did recently was from Lesotho, of garment exporters taking advantage of duty-free access that they have to Canada, something I'll also speak to in a moment. I'm going to give a very quick overview of the website that we offer, really just to encourage you to visit and take the time. If you are an exporter and you're interested in exploring the Canadian market, this is the place to start. So again, it's tfocanada.ca. It's the website. When you get there, you'll find that you can direct yourself in 4 different ways, but if you are an exporter looking to sell to Canada, then you would want to click on the services for foreign suppliers. Now, you do need to register onto our system. You can get some information without registering, but you do need to register to be able to access all of the data. There is no charge for this, and it just allows us to capture a bit of information and to know that you're a qualified exporter from a developing country for whom we're able to provide that service with Canadian government funding. So once you're signed in, you get a customized page that reflects the sector that you're interested in and that you produce products in. You have your own little dashboard that describes the information that we have on file for you that you've provided us. And from here you can access our publications, the Exporting to Canada Handbook I mentioned, but also 20 sector-specific publications, things like seafood or footwear, very specific Canadian market publications that will give you the information on regulations, on marketing vehicles, and market trends and market size that you would need to assess before entering the market here. And there's a variety of other sources of information and news. The left is the main navigation menu where you'll move through the site and get the information that you need. And right in the center of the website page there is a very important database. It's one that's actually produced and managed by the Canadian government that we provide access to through our site, which is the Canadian Importers Database. And it, in fact, is a database of all Canadian importers based on what they've imported over the past year. And you can search for your product of interest and get immediately a list of the names of the key importers that have sourced that product, whether that be handbags or women's footwear or men's clothing. And we have a quarterly newsletter that we send out as well. So just to explain, if you wanted to access our publications, which we hope you do after today. You'll see quite a long list of these market information papers, including the Exporting to Canada Handbook. And when you do access these publications, of course in PDF format, you'll see a full range of information that's available to you, as I explained, in terms of both regulatory, distribution information, marketing information. The dashboard that we give you once you've created a site lets you know not just that you're registered with us, but you can also register an export offer on the TFO Canada site. We regularly publish these offers. In fact, they're accessible 7/24 to the importer community. But monthly, we publish these export offers to interested buyers, and you can actually see from the dashboard how many times your profile has been viewed by a foreign buyer or a Canadian buyer. Now, one little flag you might see on your profile is yellow or red to say that you don't have a complete profile. And that's just to remind you that you can, as I say, publish a true export offer using our service. And this is just an example, obviously a little hard to read, of the type of information that is provided to Canadian buyers based on how you've completed your export offer. So obviously your contact details, a description of your company, the type of exports you currently do. Now, I'm jumping topics just to give you a glimpse on a very important duty access, market access initiative that the Canadian government opened up 10 years ago, primarily for African exporters. It's called the Least Developed Country Market Access Initiative, and it does provide duty-free access into Canada for any least developed country. It's a very generous scheme, as I'll explain, and for those of you familiar with the AGOA scheme in the US, it is very similar and in some ways much more easier to access. So since 2003, 34 least developed countries have had duty-free access to Canada, and it is to every product that you could export to Canada except for 3: dairy products, poultry, and eggs. Anything else, assuming the product meets the regulatory requirements for Canada, can be accessed without duty, without quota, into the Canadian market. There are, of course, rules of origin for those of you exporters. Sometimes that's a challenging one, especially in garment sectors or complex supply chain sectors. And I don't want to oversimplify the rules because they can get a little complex, especially in the textile sector. But generally speaking, if 20% of the value of the product originates or is added to the product in a least developed country, then it qualifies for duty-free access to Canada. At least 40% has to come from a developing country, least, or another developing country like China or Taiwan, or not Taiwan, anyway, China as an example. Kenya is another example. But least developed countries, 20% of the value of the product needs to come from the LDC. The product also has to ship directly to Canada. It can be transshipped through another country, but it does need to be a sale made by a company from the LDC to a company in Canada. That is a list of the countries. I won't expect everyone to write that down, but what I will recommend is that you afterwards have time to visit the TFO Canada booth in the B2B room next door, and we have brochures that we're distributing about the duty-free initiative. So finally, be sure to register with tfocanada.ca and be sure to visit our small table in the room next door. Our project manager responsible for our activities in Africa, Blaine Mulugeta, who may be in the room, and if not, she's at the table in the room next door. She will be here both today and all day tomorrow to meet with you, to support your interests in exporting to Canada. And certainly if any of you are in the artisan sector or in the food sector in particular, we have developed a program of B2B activities tomorrow. So please be sure to see Blaine, if you have not already, to arrange for your participation in that program that starts tomorrow morning. So thank you for your time on TFO Canada. And I would now like to introduce our next panelist to speak a bit about the capacity building activities that she's been involved in with TFO and with other organizations assisting women exporters in Africa and indeed all around the globe. So Diane Girard, please.